news agenda during the last few days. This week in Perspectives, we look at how other European TV channels have been covering the events in Russia and Pakistan. Russia's RTR had this report. There are only ashes instead of a house in the village of Kryushi. Lyudmila Karamova almost died during the inferno that destroyed 57 houses in a few minutes. Almost all the villagers have lost their homes, documents and all their possessions in the fire. I went into the street and saw a wave of fire. It was like the end of the world. It was terrifying. It was very, very fast. The villagers have been rehomed in the regional hospital, which has been transformed into an emergency centre. Here they're given food, essentials and a roof. Every day more victims arrive. In Kryushi it was a blessing that the hospital and a few houses escaped the flames, as the village of Pereditsi was completely destroyed by the fire. Striking images of charred chimneys, cars and scorched earth. This house was in flames, that one wasn't, but the third began burning and the wave of flames crossed the street over the houses. We all just ran wherever. Authorities in the region where the fires are the most serious consider the situation critical. The fires in the region of Ryazan have lasted more than a month. More than 50,000 hectares are on fire. Tens of kilometers of forest have been reduced to ashes. It's from here the flames continue their road to villages, transforming them into rubble. The emergency services are working 24/7. More than 2,000 people and hundreds of vehicles have been mobilized to combat the wildfires. Reinforcements have arrived from Moscow and Tula. Military recruits, paratroopers and volunteers are also helping rescue teams. The General Staff hold meetings several times a day. Planes are not able to take part in the battle to put out the fires because the thick fumes suffocate both the firefighters and inhabitants. The enormous danger of new fires remains in the region. The teams try to put out the flames, but a lot depends on the weather. Authorities are hoping there won't be any strong winds, otherwise the fire will be impossible to stop. A bus is prepared to evacuate those closest to the fires. In the meantime, the battle against the inferno continues. The situation on the front line remains unchanged. As Russia burns and Moscow smoulders, uncomfortable questions are being raised about how such a catastrophe could come to pass. Spain's TVE had this report. After 2 weeks of uncomfortable fires, Russia is beginning to talk about causes other than heat and drought. It's thought a lot may have been started: cigarettes badly put out, barbecues in the wrong place, fires to burn rubbish. Some suspected arsonists have also been arrested. Russia's president has dismissed several senior army officials for criminal negligence after a fire destroyed a large part of a military base in the Moscow region. We now have to protect all strategic installations at risk, like nuclear power stations, said Dmitry Medvedev. Later, when the situation is calmer, there will be time to hold those responsible to account. Perhaps that might include the heart of the government. Vladimir Putin, who was president in 2007, is accused of approving a less protective forest code, allowing private exploitation and the indiscriminate cutting down of forests. The number of forest wardens has also fallen. Greenpeace estimates 70,000 people up until 3 years ago occupied this post. Switzerland's TSR reported on the devastating floods in Pakistan, with authorities being accused of doing too little to help victims. The channel looked at the potentially dangerous political consequences. Everywhere water has replaced earth. In all, 80,000 homes have been flooded, whole villages cut off from the world. Having lost everything, hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis face the deadly threat of cholera and gastroenteritis. The ultimate irony: they could die from dehydration. She's been suffering from a fever since yesterday. I brought her to the medical camp so that she could be cared for. These floods have serious political consequences in an area seen as an Al-Qaeda stronghold. The villagers are angry against the government, who have been unable to feed or shelter victims. They are also angry at President Zardari, who is on a diplomatic tour of Europe. The area has therefore been left free to Islamist charities, sometimes very close to the Taliban. The vital support they bring enables them to win over a distressed population. The government has not done enough for victims. We haven't eaten. We're piled on top of each other. There are 5 or 6 families living in one room. There's hardly any room to sleep. The disaster is nowhere near finished. From the north, the monsoon rains are expected in the centre and south of the country. UNICEF estimates that several million euros are needed to meet the immediate needs of flood victims. French channel France 2 also looked at the floods in Pakistan, discussing whether climate change is responsible for the extreme weather being witnessed. Today there is nothing of this village in northern Pakistan. Dozens of people missing, homes taken away by the current. Those that have survived have lost everything. We didn't realize how violent it would be. Our harvest has been destroyed. Everything we had is lost. We fled with the few things that we could save. Pakistan has not seen monsoon floods like this for 80 years. 3 million people have been affected. There are already 1,200 dead, while emergency centres are overwhelmed. The monsoon was triggered by warm air currents from the Indian Ocean heading towards the north of Pakistan. The 3 biggest cities, Swat, Peshawar and Shangla, are cut off from the world. After hitting land, the warm, moist air gains altitude, cooling along the slopes of the Himalayas. Same cause, same result in Thailand. A large part of the country is up to a metre high in water, with authorities advising people to leave their homes. In India, warm currents of air follow the same path, with some of the worst weather in the state of Gujarat. Here, some 200 deaths in a few days. The inhabitants have been left to their own fate. The situation here is really dangerous. We've warned authorities, but nobody has come yet. Exceptional floods in India and China, a heat wave and wildfires in Russia, 2 extremes that are preliminary signs of climate change. Climate projections forecast more violent monsoons. We also expect more extreme heat waves in the northern hemisphere, like Russia. Food for thought for those taking part in the Bonn summit, who will spend a week discussing the consequences of climate change.